let's give a clap in the count. 3, 1, 2, 3. That was not synced at all, but it's alright. First of all, we have our first main issue already about this podcast that we have to deal with.
What's that?
What do we even call this podcast?
Again, that is something that I don't know. We've talked about the podcast in length. We've talked about what we want it to be. We've talked about length. We've talked about segments, but we have not come up with a name for it.
Mm-hmm. I got a few ideas here that people are pitching. I don't know if you're taking a look at them yet.
Not yet.
Oh, I can read them out to you to see what you think. Just some ideas here. First, we got Janitor's Closet.
Oh, that's cute.
I came up with that one because I figured since we're both janitors, we can do something with the name. Do something a little cheeky. And I figured like a janitor's closet is a good way to just... I mean, that's what we are. That's what we are.
Yeah.
Two janitors. And we're both quite used to janitor's closets. So I figured like just having that as like a big podcast name would be pretty interesting.
What if we took it one step further and called it the janitor's slop room?
Slop room? Open to that idea. Why not? We got an idea submitted by Shane.
Mm-hmm.
2 seconds.
2 seconds is Shane's suggestion.
Yep. Which I do like initially just because there's a lot of play on words there.
Mm-hmm.
It also will be impossible to spell it out for somebody.
Yes. Yep.
2 seconds. But I do like the idea of that just because 2 seconds, we're 2 second shit boys and there's two of us. So he actually submitted a pretty interesting one too.
Yeah.
Another one was just We Can't See Our Friends. That was the initial one I pitched.
Yeah.
Just because it's definitely more of a realistic name for our podcast.
Yep.
And that's the reason why we even decided on this idea, right? Because we can't see our friends. So might as well call the podcast We Can't See Our Friends. That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
We got some like night couch talk for one.
Oh.
I got the night couch talk idea because I feel that's like where we usually do most of our talking anyways, on the couch.
Yep.
So probably just reenacting the atmosphere of our conversation is probably the best in terms of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one I got was just past midnight.
Okay.
So stuff like that, just like going late tonight. But those are 5 that we got pitched in here. I don't know where.
So far, the first one's probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think it sets it out differently from other podcasts. I think when you're talking about like After Midnight or the Couch podcast or things like that, I think there's a lot of podcasts that are already kind of named similarly to those. You can type that into Spotify and you'd probably get 10 or 20 different versions of those names. So far, Janitor's Closet is probably my favorite.
It's a little unique for what you're used to hearing.
Yep.
Because I don't listen to many podcasts. I'm assuming you do.
Yep.
So you probably have more experience on knowing like titles or way podcasts are done. This is definitely a new genre that I don't really explore very often.
Yeah.
At work or whatever. So I like the Janitor's Closet.
And I like the play on words. 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Yeah.
I like that it's, we're 2 second shift guys, and then it's kind of a funny play on the length of a podcast too. It's by no means do I think our podcasts are going to last 2 seconds, but it's kind of funny.
Could you imagine though?
2 seconds
podcast. Yeah, but think of how much we could milk that out.
Yeah.
We could make our eating session be the next year.
Oh my God. Nate, what'd you think about Bamboo Village? Oh, we'll talk about it next time.
All right, I'm done with the Janitor's Closet. You want Janitor's Closet? Or you want Janitor's slop room?
Let's let people listen to the first podcast.
Okay.
And then we'll see what people have to say.
All right, viewers, it's up to you to vote for us. You want Janitor's Closet or you want Janitor's slop room? Whichever one feels more better to you. Let us know. Alright, so everyone, welcome back to our first ever debut podcast with me, and you know what, this is the first topic I want to think. Do you want to refer to your name, or do you want a little alias?
No, Jordan's fine.
Okay. I was like, we could be the Fisherman, the Blueberry. That's what I was thinking. Welcome back to the podcast with the Fisherman, the Blueberry over here.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, this is our first podcast that we're making of just us talking into the night. The main reason why we're making this podcast is because we never see our friends.
Mm-hmm.
We are working completely different lifestyle now, which we'll talk about more in details in a little bit. But we decided to make this podcast because we can barely see our friends in our normal lives now. But we want to keep up with them, let them know what's going on in our lives, and if anything interesting happens and whatnot. So we decided to make this podcast in order to just kind of keep up with our friends, let them know what's going on in our lives. Because I would imagine that, like, you and I, even though we're second shift now, and we just go to work, come back home and sleep, I do feel that we still do have things going on to our daily lives that we can talk about. We're not just living a robot life where we're just going to work and nothing eventful happens, you know?
I do think with the schedule change, I think it's probably affected you a lot more than it's affected me.
For sure. Now, I'm definitely going to get into the weeds of that once we get into that topic.
Yeah.
For sure. It definitely has affected us. But the main reason why we are even doing this is, like, I just want to keep up with our friends, right? I'm assuming you do too.
Yep.
We want to keep up with our friends, let them know what's going on, even have some interesting plans for the ways we could spice it up, keep it going. Like, we have a podcast within our podcast thing that we're doing, that just to mix things up. And I'm sure we have some events planned, and we can always talk about things that happen through our daily lives that our friends don't see because they don't see us.
Yep.
So I'm excited to talk to them about that and see how that's gonna play out. I'm hoping it'll be great. Jordan, what do you want out of this podcast, if anything? Because I know that starting a podcast is not an easy feat to do, right? So do you have anything that you would like to get out of this podcast for yourself?
Honestly, when I think about doing a podcast, a lot of it isn't. I don't do it for my own entertainment. I'm doing it for others' entertainment. I want to give somebody something to listen to that they want to listen to, and if it helps them pass the day by getting to work faster in their car, or if it makes work go faster by listening to it while at work, that's my goal.
How have podcasts affected your life?
Well, now that I'm working janitorial and I'm pretty much left to my own devices 8 hours a day, podcasts and music are really the only thing I do at work, other than work. I always have an earbud in. I'm always listening to something. There's a few podcasts that I've been listening to the last couple of months now that kind of become a daily routine at this point. I've got a few that I have on rotation that get sent out every day of the week, so I know when and where to listen to it, and that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, I was never really much of a podcast guy, but now that we're working these type of shifts, late at night, you're alone by yourself, you definitely need things to keep things going. I've always been rocking music for the most part, but a podcast is actually pretty good for our line of work, because you can still, the stuff we do, we're still able to pay attention to the podcast. It's not like we're so overwhelmed with work that we can't think about anything.
Yeah.
If anything, podcast is like the perfect background thing to put on.
I do notice at work, if I've got a high workload for the day, I do actually pull my earbud out and I won't listen to anything. But that's my ADHD talking. That's taken over. That's me focusing on what I need to get done. And that's just the type of person I am. But when I've got a job where I'm vacuuming for 6 hours a day, that's when I put on a funny podcast and I laugh along.
Yeah, I've only recently started getting into podcasts and stuff, like, I don't know, so on a big level, following up your little recommendation of Bad Friends, so I've been listening to a lot of that.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
You say that you listen to him backwards, and now that I'm listening to him from the very beginning and going onwards, I think your method of listening to him is insanity.
Really? Because I thought your way of listening to them was insanity.
Okay, so the reason why I like listening to him in order is because you actually get to see them, like, develop and get better and, like, build up the people on the shows, like, in a natural way. I guess to me, it just feels so weird to see that process backwards.
Okay. For me, the reason I work backwards is because some of these podcasts have been around for 10 so years. You've got, like, Bad Friends that has been a podcast, and they've got hundreds of episodes. So when you're going back years. I mean, pre-COVID. And a lot of the stuff that they end up talking about is irrelevant at this point. Like, you still get the comedic stuff. You still get the skits and the funny stories and stuff like that. But when they're talking about like current events, it doesn't even apply anymore.
In a way, though, I kind of do like it because of them talking about past events.
Okay.
Though. I do enjoy that part. Because I'm currently in the era where the George Floyd thing happened and the COVID. And I think it's very interesting to just hear, like, what was going through their minds at the time.
Sure.
Of, like, if it happening live, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to see what they had to say, especially now that you can see the events.
Reflect on it.
Can reflect on it. And I always thought it was very interesting to see what they thought about it live as it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's crazy to hear an episode where they were talking about George Floyd, and you realize, like, damn, that was like
4 years ago.
4 years ago, and also that was like right next to us, you know.
Yeah.
Practically it happened in the city.
In our backyard.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy to hear about. So it's two different ways of listening to podcasts for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I definitely I like the progression. I like seeing the progression how they grow, and that's just not like bad friends. Like anybody, I think
Okay.
any new podcast that anybody recommends to me, I'll probably listen from the beginning.
Okay.
Just because I like to see them at the start, and I think the reward for me will be a lot better to get to the present, knowing the journey that they took here.
Okay.
But that's just my method of listening. Obviously, you got a different method, right? Which I think that's one good thing about podcasts, right? You can watch whatever order you want, get to know them the way that you feel comfortable knowing them, whether it's current events or going back to the past. Which I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. There is one podcast that I listened to that I started the beginning of. I'm kind of blanking on the name of it, but I think it's called like My Brother, and Me. And they're a podcast that does D&D. And so each episode is a session of their D&D campaign. And that one, you have to start from the beginning. You don't want to go into the middle of a D&D story and not know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever listened to a D&D podcast. I've tried listening to D&D stuff in the past. Obviously, the Critical Roles and whatever. I think, weirdly enough, it's hard for me to follow a D&D podcast.
Okay.
I usually have like a really hard time following what's going on. And I guess I'm not. For me, I guess when you're not involved in the D&D session, it gets a lot more hard to pay attention to if you're not involved in it. Like nobody wants to go to a D&D session and just watch everyone else play,
right?
Because you'll zone out and you won't be invested because you're not part of the story. I guess that's the problem I have when I'm listening to D&D stuff or watching D&D stuff. I always feel disconnected from what's happening because I'm not part of it. Part of the enjoyment of D&D for me, a big part, is being involved with it. Whether you're a player or you're a DM, it is very hard to be invested when you're just a bystander.
Sure.
Which is why I always kind of respect everyone else that's able to actually get into it, feel like they're part of the journey. I really envy those guys because it's just hard for me to be part of it. Also, another thing about the podcast thing, going back to the podcast thing, one thing that I want out of this podcast is actually to fix my speaking issue, because Kevin always gives me shit for stuttering. Especially on recording, I always stutter a lot, and I'm pretty sure I've already stuttered a lot up to this point. This is a good opportunity for me to just practice proper speaking so that I can stop stuttering. I'm going to try to catch myself from stuttering as much as I can.
Okay.
Because I really want to show Kevin that I can talk a whole podcast without stuttering.
Cool.
That's like one of my goals, to rub in his face. So I'm going to try to see if I can do that. Because he always gives me shit for messing up at work. He does that every time he's watching like the edits.
He's very critical.
Yes. And he likes to really pick up on when you mess up something. Like on that Intimacy is Hot episode where Shane came on, dude, he gave Shane so much shit for everything Shane said. Because Shane kept messing up words and stuff.
It's easy to do.
It is, but that's why I want to prove him wrong. Do a whole podcast without messing anything up, just to rub it in his face one day. Well, let's get right into it then, Jordan. So, our lives are a little different compared to our friends nowadays. We have, on days where they come home from work, that's when we're starting to go to work.
Exactly.
And then by the time we come home, everybody's already in bed. So, this is even though you've been living here a long time of course, you've been here a long time. I don't think you've been living a second shift life, though. So, I was wondering, like, how has it been for you being just being like a janitor, first of all, because that is a new career for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you've done daycare for the longest time.
Yep.
So then you switched over to a different career. And now you're on second shift as well. So how has the past like 2 months have been for you?
Ultimately, I think it's really my social life hasn't changed much because when I was doing childcare, I was doing a split shift anyway. So I would have to be up at the crack of dawn, and I'd already have to work until 6 in the afternoon as well. So that already doesn't leave you much time to do much of anything. That would cause me to go to bed sometimes at 8 o'clock at night because I'd be waking up at 4 in the morning. And the time where I'd have in between my work shifts was only 4 hours, and it was between 10 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which again, no one is free during those times either. So it really hasn't changed much of my social, but it has changed my sleep pattern, which actually I kind of prefer because I've always been a night owl. I've always been someone who's enjoyed staying up late. I think I enjoy the type of person I am more when I'm getting to do that. So it's always been more natural to me to stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning. And now I get to do that and work and just be kind of free a little bit more with myself. I was always an anxious person when it comes to work. When I was doing split shifts, I never really did anything with my days because I always got into this mindset like, oh, in an hour I have to go to work. I can't do anything anyway. I just might as well sit here and either go take a nap or watch TV. But now that I work a straight hour shift, and even if it is a second shift, I can still do what I want a little bit more now. I am restricted. Not many places are open after 11:30. So when I was finding myself going to the grocery store in between work shifts or getting a haircut or doing any of that, that was a possibility. But now that is absolutely not a possibility. I find myself sleeping until I have to go to work, which is like 1:30 in the afternoon. Probably not healthy, but that's just the way I like to do things. Otherwise, I worry about it too much. Yeah.
You sleep in a lot more than I do.
Yeah?
As of late.
Yeah, I think it's the seasons changing. I've been a little bit under the weather a little bit more lately, and I've been wanting to squeeze out as much sleep as I can, especially since the job I've been doing is a lot more physical now, and sleep is that much more important. When I was working with kids, I could go to work on 4 hours of sleep. It wasn't a problem. But now if I tried doing that while doing custodial work, it would affect me a lot more.
So well, we'll get to how it is to be a custodian. I guess I'll talk about my second shift life. Well, this is the first time I've actually doing second shift as well. If I had to really sum it up real simply for my friends about how I've been feeling in the most honest way possible, I am always constantly exhausted. I am always feeling constantly like I haven't slept for 3 days and that I'm just barely holding it together. That's usually my default mood nowadays. That's why I appreciate weekends where I can just sleep until 5 in the afternoon. Because those, you can call it lazy, but for me, those are important times for just getting the rest back in.
Yep.
I'm always constantly tired. Even when I'm at work, pretty much any time that's not the weekend, I will always look like I haven't had enough sleep, which half the time that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So second shift, if anything, it has really shown my exhaustion and how far I'm willing to push things.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that though, like if I didn't have the exhaustion thing, I would totally be fine with second shift. I definitely am a lot more reclusive and talk to my friends, or even just jumping on my PC. I'm pretty sure you notice I have not jumped on my PC in like as much as I used to. I probably jump on like once every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And I think that's just because like you don't want to jump on it when you get home at like 1 in the morning.
Yeah, no, there is like zero motivation to hop on a computer after doing what we do.
Yeah, I just want to just sit down and just lay down and then go to sleep that way, or just put on something on TV. I never really understood the appeal of people coming home and just watching TV until I started doing second shift.
Yep.
And then now Now when I come home and we just sit on the couch and we just watch something on TV, like I totally see why people do that after work now. I see.
And that's pretty much become our daily routine now. We both kind of, you get home a little bit later than me, but our nights now are basically just us chilling on the couch, smoking a little bit, and putting something on to watch.
Yeah, what else can we do? We're so wiped out from work until 1 in the morning. You know, we don't really have much things we can do. Did you know that one of my coworkers is fucking insane? He likes to go home and then go on like a 10-mile bike ride.
Oh, I wish I had that energy. I wish I had that discipline.
I've told him, I'm like, you're fucking insane. Go home at midnight and then fucking watch, and then go on a 10-mile bike ride in the middle of the night.
In the dark, that's
in the
crazy.
Dark. He's like, yeah, I got these tools for the cars and stuff, so I'm like, good thing you do, because let me tell you, I've almost hit a lot of people on my way back driving through Minneapolis. A lot of them do not have any lights or anything on their bikes.
Right.
Sometimes I would just see a guy crossing the street as I'm driving up that crossroad, and I see him just barely pass my car. And he's like wearing like black shirts and stuff. He's like total pitch darkness.
Asking to get hit.
And I'm just like, what are you people doing? I'm gonna hit somebody one of these days.
Gotta fill that stereotype.
So it's just crazy how like my coworker's like, yeah, I just go on a 10-mile bike ride.
Wow.
I was like, you're insane, man. I wouldn't even go on a half-mile bike ride.
Wow.
And you're going 10 miles every day. At least you're staying in shape. I'll give you credit for at least maintaining your health. That's something I want to do, but we don't have the energy.
Yeah.
I don't want to work out when I get home. Yeah, I don't want to get up at 11
Nope.
to do it. Because I actually thought about that.
Yeah.
I thought about like, oh, when I move in here, I'm going to get a gym set. And then like every day wake up like 2 hours early and just do some morning workouts and be in shape. It's going to be great. And then I realized that, fuck that, I'd rather sleep.
Yeah. For me, it's like, I don't want to go into work half of myself. Like, I want to go in, I want to do my work, I want to put my head down, I want to get it done. And if I'm already doing like a workout before work, I'm going to be afraid that I don't go in with my full bar energy. And then I'm going to get burnt out halfway through my shift and then not get my work done.
Some people say that like, we're just janitors, so what's the harm in working out and going in? But I think even janitor work, going in like half of your energy bar to do the work is still hard.
Yeah.
It's still hard to do with just half a tank.
Yep.
And even something like janitor where you can do things at your own pace, you still rather go with full energy, you know?
Yep.
So that's me telling you that I'm probably never gonna get gym set here.
Yeah.
Because I thought about it, but I was like, there's no fucking way that I would even use it unless it's on weekends.
Right.
That's barely an investment.
And then even then we have our weekends so jam-packed full of things to make up for what we don't get to do during the week. So it's like we don't even really have the time on the weekends to do that even if we wanted to.
Yeah, there are things good things that come out of us watching stuff. Obviously, we watch a lot of things, so we get to talk about that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
like we'll do later. But we do get enjoyment and our fill of life from just hanging out every night on the couch.
Yeah.
So it's not like I definitely wouldn't say that we just waste our hours away at night. We definitely make
the most of it.
Make the most of it for sure. It's what we can do. It's the best we can. And it's the best we can do with this current schedule.
Yep.
Do you do anything different on weekends now, knowing that you don't get to talk to anybody on the weekdays, or do you kind of still the same for you?
I try to be more social on the weekends, but I feel like I was already kind of that person that tried to make that a point. Like I said, I don't know that the second shift has affected me as much as it would someone who was already working a regular 8-hour shift. The only big difference now is that I sleep until like 1 in the afternoon. Whereas with my old job, it's pretty custom for me to wake up very early, even on the weekends.
Yeah, I always try to have all these goals for the weekend, like bank everything I need to do on the weekends. And even then, I'm finding it hard to do everything. Like for this weekend, for example, I was going to I want to take my Saturday to just enjoy myself, play a little bit Sparking Zero, and then I was going to try to see if I can watch like an anime show by myself, like just binge a show, like just lay on the bed binge a show.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was not enough time for that, so I had to make do without it. And then Sunday is usually my like do everything like work related that's not work.
Yeah.
Like I try to do dishes,
Chores.
chores we can do. Oh, yeah, chores. Like it's hard to do chores with this schedule. We're doing like a little thing every weekend.
Yep.
Just so we can say that we're taking steps. I do think that method is working out for our schedule though.
Yeah, I think it's just fine.
Like I don't ever see a day where you and I will just spend the whole day cleaning the house because we know that we can spread it out slowly and do it over time.
Yeah.
We don't want to spend a whole one of our 2 free days just cleaning the house.
Yeah.
Like, I think we'd rather do things we want. But so I do like that we are taking steps to clean the house as slow as we can. Just whatever fits within our energy parameters.
Yeah.
And the free time we got. So I do appreciate that at least we're doing something, right, to clean the house. We're not just leaving it the way it is. But Sunday's hard. Sunday's like, well, we gotta record this, and then I gotta see if I can hang out with friends because I still have to gotta do social obligations. You know, you don't want to admit it, but in life there is such a thing as social obligation that you gotta fulfill. Hopefully, I think I fulfilled that last night by hanging out with Kevin. A little bit. Play a lot of Sparkings. Oh yeah, and Shane and John too. They were there too.
Yep.
So I always try to get some sort of social thing going just to show that like, hey, I'm not just completely gone. Because I have to really push myself to hang out with people on the weekends now. Because I know that if I don't, people are gonna start questioning like where I am. Especially if they see you online constantly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they'll be asking constantly like, where's Nate? What's he doing? Because last Sunday I was last Sunday when you were sick, you were on the PC on Sunday hanging out with everyone, and I was just doing chores up here. I was going shopping, cleaning the dishes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was planning to get on eventually, but I never ended up finding the time. I was just so busy with chores that before I knew it was already like 8 o'clock and you were already up here.
Yep.
So I tried to hang out with friends every weekend at least once, just because for my own sanity, it's probably a good idea to just catch up with your friends, let them know you're still here, let them know that you're not just a completely dead robot.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do fear. That's one thing that I fear the most about this second shift is that I would definitely get really reclusive and just stop talking to people. Like I already barely jump on the PC enough as it is.
Yeah.
So I do see myself, like if I was living on my own, I could literally see myself quite reclusive, and like I probably wouldn't talk to you guys very much if I lived on my own. Not because I don't want to talk to my friends or anything. It's just you're just too tired. You're just too tired on the weekends. You get 2 days to yourself. You don't want to just spend a bunch of them with your friends when you want to spend it to yourself. So I do have that struggle a lot of times during weekends. I'm not too worried about it right now though because the holidays are coming up. Like there's gonna be a day where we get to ourselves eventually.
Oh yeah,
it's coming up. Everyone's gonna be hanging out with their families and stuff, and then I'll find an opportunity. That's what I usually do every Thanksgiving and Christmas because everyone's hanging out with their families, and I don't hang out with my family, so I just hang out by myself. So I do get those days to myself eventually. So I'm just waiting for those days to come.
Yep.
But I do try my best to remind my friends that I'm still here. I exist. And I'm not just running away from everybody. Although it's really hard to muster the will to get down that PC room, though. It's moving it down there has been quite a change in my psyche.
Yeah.
Because I never jump on anymore.
Well, it's not just like next to your bed anymore. You actually have to walk down a flight of stairs to get to it.
In a way, that's good for your mental health, but it's also rough too, because then now you have to find the energy to get down there.
Right.
And that is hard sometimes. But I still think overall I like it being downstairs more than being in my room if I had to choose. When you have your PC right next to you, it makes you real lazy.
Oh yeah.
When you can just get up and get on your PC.
So easy to neglect all of your responsibilities.
Yeah, so I like it downstairs because if I want to get talking to my friends, if I want to talk to them, I would have to walk through the house. And then I would have to look around the house and see like, all right, did you do everything you need to do before you hang out with your friends? It's like a little check.
Yep.
Check in with you to make sure the house is good. And if the house is good, then you go downstairs and hang out with your friends. So I do like that. It's a little bit harder in terms of getting on, but the reward is more worth it. I feel.
Okay.
Because I'm so used. Spent what 20 something years of just having the PC next to you. Yeah, it spoils you.
Yep.
It spoils you a lot. I can see why you moved everything down there.
Yep.
Whew. So how has being a janitor been? Because I know we talked a lot about the second shift, but we haven't really talked much about being a janitor itself.
I think for me, it's maybe one of the better decisions I've made. The micromanaging that you get from this line of work is not fun. It's not good. It definitely weighs on you more than a lot of other jobs does, I think, in my opinion. But the thing that's good about it is, with my ADHD brain, when I go to work, I am expending like all of my mental capacity to get the job done. I'm hyper focusing on what I need to do, and I'm draining my mental battery, which means when I come home, I don't have that voice in my head anymore just picking at me. There's no room for it. There's no energy for that to continue happening. Before, I used to toss and turn in bed and not be able to fall asleep. Now that is a problem of the past. I have not, since getting this job, I fall asleep like a baby, and the moment I fall asleep, I am dead to the world for 8 hours straight. And that I can really appreciate.
Yeah, janitor work is really made you forced to make use of your time.
Mm-hmm.
The time that you have. You want a few hours. You get only a few hours of sleep. You gotta make the most of it. Otherwise, you're gonna be in for a long night.
Yep.
So I do, because janitor stuff is actually something that I've done longer than you. So I have a little bit of experience. My schedule was actually probably more wilder back at Kohl's. Because there'll be some days where I had to unload the truck that arrives.
Yeah.
And I have to go there at like 3 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning. So there are some shifts where I have 11 to 5, some shifts where I have like 3 to 1, 4 to 1. So I already had to deal with like working till late night. And then the few weeks before I left Kohl's, they were doing some store remodeling, and I volunteered for quote unquote volunteered. Still can't tell you if it was actually volunteer or not, or it was assigned.
An illusion of a choice.
Yeah, but like I've actually stayed all nighters, and from when the store closed at like 9, 10, all the way to like 6 in the morning, and I just moved a bunch of stuff around the store, just redesigned the whole thing. Thank goodness it was a Kohl's and not like a Target, because that would have sucked.
Yeah.
But I've done a few of those night shifts before I left Kohl's, so in a way, Kohl's kind of prepped me for the second shift janitor life. And since I already did janitor stuff, the transition of janitor was not that hard. I actually think that was a lot more easier for me. It was definitely the whole second shift thing that was the difficult part.
Yeah.
I was not anticipating how draining it would be working just simply 3 to midnight.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly didn't think that would be a big deal at first. I thought that would be kind of easy. I thought that would be a very simple thing to do. And it turns out it's actually a lot more mentally and physically draining than you thought it would be. Especially when like you leave every day and it's like fucking pitch black dark, you know?
Yep.
And now when winter's coming up, it's going to be even harder for us because like when we leave the house, the sun is probably on its way down.
Yep. So
every day we'll be leaving it at semi-sunset and then it's pitch black night when we come out.
Yeah, we just won't see the sun anymore.
Which, that's going to be something. I worked a single shift in Wisconsin once at like this factory where I didn't see the sun at all. Wow. And it was crazy. For one weekend, I went there at like 3 in the morning or something like that, and worked till like worked a 12-hour shift. I think it wasn't until like the next night.
Yeah.
So I would literally wake up, not see the sunrise, and then leave, and I wouldn't see the sun. Can you imagine going a whole day without seeing the sun? Just imagine a whole day where you don't see the sun. That's just it does something to you.
Yeah, it can't be healthy necessarily. I was reading a statistic that said that people who work the night shift, second shift, on average live like 15 years less than the regular person. And that is a bit haunting in a way. You think
there's actually true proofs and stuff behind that claim?
I mean, you got to take every statistic or thing like that with a grain of salt. I don't know how true it is. But I could definitely see the mental wear of not being able to see sunlight or working that shift specifically that could have some negative effects.
Yeah, I mean, If it's 15 years, then fuck it, it's 15 years, you know? We've already agreed. We already talked about it. It's like, if that's true, then I guess we die 15 years earlier.
Yeah.
There's really nothing we can do about it.
Yep.
And we don't have the energy to. It probably has to do with the energy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, people that work second shift, you got no energy to do anything. On the weekends, you're just a tired mess.
Yeah.
You don't just have the energy to do anything. But, you know, one good thing about second shift is as exhausted as I am, and as much as Apollo wants to go against it and make it hard, I do get a very good amount of peace and quiet.
Yep.
It feels a lot more peaceful.
Yep.
And I can appreciate that. Come from a house, moved out of a house that was just noisy all the time. Not noisy as in everybody's just constantly loud, but everyone's constantly bothering you.
Yep.
And I appreciate just living somewhere where I know that the majority of it will be quiet, even though my mom tries to ruin it every time. Just call me every other day.
Yeah, every time I hear you guys on the phone, it just sounds like an angry mess of a conversation. And I don't even know what's being said, but it just sounds like two people yelling into a speaker.
You may not understand the language, but you understand the tones. And I think that's important in a phone call. Yeah, it just sucks that I moved away and I still have to deal with all that stuff, being way over here. But I guess it's lesser than when I lived over there. Because at least when I lived back in my old place, you're just one floor down.
Yeah.
It's easy to get to you.
Do you think it'll get better with time? The more time you spend away?
I don't think my mom will change because she is very smothering, and she's always been smothering. And I feel like with recent events in my life, she's probably even more smothering. So it's unfortunate. The only safety net I have is that I can tell her that I am 40 minutes away.
Yep.
So whatever you call me for, it better be real important for me to come back.
Yeah.
I'm not, because I was supposed to go back to this weekend. I don't know if you noticed, I didn't go.
Well, I did notice actually.
I didn't go because I decided ultimately in the end, and also it's the fact that I woke up at 5 yesterday.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not fucking driving home at 5 o'clock.
Right.
I kind of drew a line and said, if I'm gonna be there for only 5 minutes, I'm not going. I'm not making an hour and a half drive.
It's just too much. Too big an expectation.
Because I know exactly what would happen if I went back home. I would just grab my mail, do the one thing that I was asked to do, and then leave.
Yep.
All probably 5-10 minutes, and then that's it. So I'm trying to avoid going home unless I have something of lengthy process that I need to do over there. Which is great. I get to use that as an excuse for not having to go home. Every time she calls me, I'm going to tell her that I live 40 minutes away.
Yep.
Whatever you need me for, it's very, very important. Because asking me to come home and buy shoes on Amazon is not good enough.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
That's what she want me to do. She doesn't know how to order shoes off Amazon. My brother doesn't know how to do it, even though I feel like he should learn. But I was like, I'm not fucking coming home to shop on Amazon
Yeah,
for you.
that's crazy. How come your siblings don't take a little bit more of that role from you?
Because they hate my mother and my brother.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of bad blood in the old house.
Okay. Okay.
Everyone kind of draws their line.
Okay.
Everyone draws their line in the house, so it's like.
Did you draw your line when you were living there?
I actually didn't have any lines that I drew. I was always the type of guy that's like, hey, if anybody needs any help, you know where I am. Just give me a heads up, and I'll help you. And I just help everybody.
Yeah.
I try not to have a line because I guess maybe everyone feels different, but I really felt like I was the only person that was still trying to act like we were family back there. So part of that is me telling everyone that I'm open to help them. Like, I help my sisters who have bad blood with each other, and I still help both sides out.
Yeah.
And like whenever I help them, they would always talk about how much they don't like the other person. Like the stuff that's happened between them and like the bad blood. There's a lot of bad blood that's happened between them.
Do you think they've just spent too much time together in the same house?
For sure.
Yeah.
The house is a curse, and I feel like if the house burned down, we wouldn't. Everyone would probably be worried about where they have to live next, but they wouldn't be sad at all that the house burned down.
Wow.
That's how much bad blood is. My sister, my oldest sister in my family, was the first one to move out like 4 years ago. She saw an opportunity and she took it.
Okay.
You know? I was going to move in for her originally when she was thinking about moving out, but it just didn't work out that way. But she moved out, and now obviously I moved out.
Yep.
My other two sisters who you met, Sho and Kia, they're going to move out as well. They eventually plan to move out on their own, which I do think is a great thing to do. For the sake of everyone's mental health, I think it's just best to move away from my mother. She's like the main source of all the stress in the house. But everyone definitely draws their lines, and that's why they don't help each other out when the time comes. So can you imagine having to play a funeral with a family that hates each other? It was
that sounds like a big undertaking.
It was a lot. It was a lot. Let me tell you. Ooh, that was a stressful time. But I'm glad I moved out there. A lot quieter. Get to use an excuse, and I would like to avoid going back there as much as I can. I don't hate. Like, I still don't really hate anybody in that house. I've never hated anybody in my house, despite all the stuff that they did. I still love every family member. The only person I probably don't like is my mom, because she sucks. She's like the only person that I will actually go on record saying that I don't like her.
Wow.
But don't like her is still pretty a nice thing to say.
Pretty mild for considering the history.
Yeah, pretty mild. Like, I'm not wishing anybody was dead or anything. Everybody's
Right.
It's just, we just weren't meant to be a family.
You guys just need some time away, I think.
We need a lot of time away.
Yeah.
And I think the time away is going to be permanent from everybody. I think everyone just needs to...
They got to start their lives.
I think we're in a house where everyone wants to start their lives. And I think it's best if everyone does so. And my mom doesn't want to accept the reality, but eventually the other two sisters are going to move out. She's going to have to sell that house. And then that's going to be a pain in the ass for me to deal with when that day comes. But you know what? My name's in the deed. Let me get some of that, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a lot quieter here, that's for sure. I appreciate it. So we've been living together for a month, you know?
Yeah.
It was quite the conversation to start with. Randomly back at home when you had to, when you were asking about a roommate.
Yeah.
And then, like I told you, I definitely decided to move in, spur of the moment kind of decision. Leap of faith, you could say.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't have any faith in you, but I didn't have much faith in myself, for the most part. So it's been about a good 2 months or so, 1.5 months, 2 months, you can say. So I'm just wondering, like, you know, give me my roommate's review. You've lived with a lot of roommates.
Yep.
What's your roommate's review of me?
I mean, honestly, it's really nice not being here alone. I will say that. Like, we've been spending a lot of time together, I feel like, especially after work. And it's very nice to have a buddy to talk to. Living with others has always been, like, a necessity, so to say. It's so hard in this world to go on your own. If you're by yourself and you look at the prices of rent, it's not possible. And before, living with others was always a necessity. I always felt obligated, if I wanted to be by myself, to live with others. But living with you has been a really large joy. I look forward to coming home. I look forward to us talking. I look forward to us hanging out. I don't hide in my room anymore like I used to with other people in the house. I don't feel cut off, like I'm not allowed to be somewhere in the house. And I hope you feel the same way.
It definitely was a new thing for sure when I first moved in. Because this is the first time I've ever moved out. You already know that. It felt interesting to move in with someone that wasn't my family. Because I won't lie, I never envisioned, ever envisioning myself moving out of my house. I've always thought that I would be there forever. So to take this giant plunge, it was quite the experience. Now that I've actually done it, and I've told you this too, and a lot of people do know this, I always believe that moving in together with friends is always like a mark of death for your friendship. That's what I've always believed. Just because the 4 to 5 times that I've seen friends move in with each other, they always end poorly. It's not just like stories I heard from like your time with the Noka house. It's also with my cousins and like other stuff too.
Yeah.
There was like a lot of bad experiences that I've had, and everyone that's lived in roommates have always had a bad experience, bad stories from what I can remember.
Mhm.
I helped my cousin move in with with a buddy of his. They were trying to move in together, and his buddy like didn't even move in once they started living there. He just changed his mind. And he
Wow.
just flaked out. That's after you signed the lease and you already moved everything in.
Yeah.
And then he just never moved there again. He just flaked out. I don't know what happened there. It was a wild story.
Yeah.
But that was pretty rough. And then I've heard some stories about Kevin, like the roommates that you had over the years. Stories, bits and pieces here from your time at the Anoka house, where everybody was here, or just just bits and pieces of you living here with Kat. None of it's not any of my concern. It's my business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ask about what happened before, what happened here before I came here. I sure hope that you've noticed I never asked you about that because I feel like it's not my place. And even if you told me, I don't feel like it's not in my business anyways. Like it wouldn't change how I'm living now,
Right.
Unless you were a fucking serial killer before I moved here or something.
Well, then you would have been stabbed already.
Yeah. So I don't usually ask you about that because I'm on the side of like whatever happened in the past, we put in the past. We worry about the present, worry about what happens right now. Like everybody could tell me, everyone that used to live with you could tell me that you were the worst roommate ever, but I would tell them, well, Jordan hasn't shown any signs of that to me, so I think he's a good roommate.
All right.
So
I think what it really just boils down to is like people's standards of living, and the way that they were brought up. I think if you can come together with somebody else in a space and have a mutual respect and an understanding that it's not just your space, that's when a lot of those minor problems start to go away. And if you're someone that can sit down with the other person and talk about it, if there is a problem, then that's great. You can hash it out. But when it really, in my opinion, becomes a problem is when the Minnesota in people comes out and people have to start being passive aggressive about things, or they bottle things up and they don't talk about it. That's when things kind of turn south and go for the worse. But I really enjoy what we've got here, and I wouldn't change it for the world, and I'm really glad that it seems to be working for both of us.
One thing I really appreciate about living here is that we're not doing crazy social things every weekend. We're not partying on Friday nights.
Yep.
We're not doing anything crazy on Saturday nights. If you tell to the average person, like our daily lives, just like we come home, we watch TV and smoke, and then on the weekends we just do our own thing, be on the PC maybe, a lot of it. It sounds so boring to many people, but to me this sounds amazing. It sounds like
It's freedom.
it's a great way to live. I don't need something crazy exciting to happen every weekend. I don't need a crazy party story for every weekend to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just happy with just a quiet, mundane life where small stuff happen that's memorable, and you just make the most of that. Like Kevin just came over yesterday, and we just played Sparking Zero for like 4 hours, and I thought that was a great, memorable weekend right there.
Yeah.
Wasn't even anything fancy.
Don't need anything more than that.
So I do enjoy it. I'm glad that I made the choice to move in, because let me tell you, I was real on the fence during our text talks.
What was your biggest fear?
That I wouldn't be able to uphold my end,
Mm-hmm.
and then and probably like my biggest fear from that angle is that I would have to eventually admit to you that I wasn't able to do it, and because if I ever hit that point, then not only did I just fuck myself over, I just fucked you over.
Has that fear dissipated, or is there still a glimmer of that affecting you?
There will always be a glimmer, just because I'm always a super cautious guy. Even when things are going perfectly well for me, I will always kind of a part of my mind will always prepare itself for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could win the lottery tomorrow, win $1 billion, and you and I would never have to work for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And I would still probably be thinking like, okay, but what if it all goes wrong? I would always have that in the deep back of my mind, and I think that's fine. I think it's a part of me that I've accepted, that I always have to prepare for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in a household, it's nice to have a person that's always ready for the worst, because you never think that you ever hit bad times. So it's nice to know that someone already has that factored into their heads of like, oh, if things do go wrong, hopefully we have this person to count on.
Yeah.
Because they probably thought about it from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I've thought about that, like even right now, like if you were to lose your job tomorrow, I have a plan, you know, stuff like that. But I guess the downside of that is if nothing works, it really, really sucks to just admit it.
Yeah.
And that was like my biggest fear of me telling you that, like, well, I couldn't get a job, Jordan, and now I don't know if I can pay for my house, and now you're kind of screwed with me, you know, that kind of stuff. That's what I was really worried about. It kept me on the fence for making the jump for the longest time. Just that fear of failure. But he did convince me to take a leap, and I did take the job.
Are you happy you did?
I'm happy it worked out. I'm always happy to be surprisingly rewarded. It's every time something good happens to me, I never think of it as something that I worked hard for. It's always like a surprise, like a lucky thing.
Bonus.
Bonus.
Is Apollo as bad as everybody says he is?
Real rating of Apollo, he is very, very terrible as a roommate.
I'm not saying he's a good dog. I'm not saying he's a bad dog. But I'm saying he's my dog. And it shows.
Which is fine. Apollo has his own little personalities, right? He's definitely making himself known as someone that lives here.
Yep.
Apollo is definitely a lot more annoying than I think, but it's not. Like, I'm not gonna ever kick out Apollo.
Oh, sure.
Like, I'll never do that. If Apollo ran out of the house, I would chase after Apollo, you know? I would not just be like, oh, it's all you, Jordan. You know? So I do, as Apollo definitely has moments where he is very annoying, but I definitely would say that, like, yeah, I'll be there for Apollo if he ever needs help.
Hell yeah.
So it's just a part of just part of having roommates. You know, you gotta take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
You can't just take every roommate for the good side and pretend their bad sides don't exist. Everybody has a bad side, I think, and that's just only fair. That's part of life. But there are definitely some nights where we would like to just chill, Apollo, and you just nonstop bother us every 2 seconds.
Yep. Very needy boy. Even right now, during this podcast, he's on the couch, needing pets and attention.
And I was about to knock over the mic.
Lay down.
But it's part of Apollo. It's part of who he is. And it's just something we have to probably accept. But that's okay. It's Apollo, you know. That's how he is. That's how his character is. Alright, Jordan. So we've been watching a lot of TV shows. In fact,
movies, TV shows, animes. Well, I would say there has not been a moment where something hasn't been on a TV lately.
Yeah, and part of being second shift and living here now, I've definitely watched more TV in the past 2 months than I have in probably years.
Yep.
So it is interesting to explore a genre that I don't usually get into. The form of entertainment. So let's see what have we been watching the past month or two.
The first thing, that we first started was Shogun. Like we put that show on. We watched like the first episode, and after that first episode, we both decided we no longer wanted to do what we had planned to do for the day, and we watched the whole show.
Shogun was quite something. What an interesting first show to watch.
It was a great show. Apparently, it's done really well in like what's the award ceremony? I can't remember, but apparently it's won a lot of awards and accolades.
Yeah, it's been doing really well internationally. It's been. I haven't heard about what Japan thought of the show. I think that would be pretty interesting to get their takes on it.
Yeah.
But we watched it, and overall, I thought it was pretty good too.
Yeah.
It surprised me what the show was actually about.
Yeah, going into it blind was probably the best thing we ever did.
Yeah, because I definitely thought it was just a show about like samurais being samurais. That's what I thought it was gonna be. Like I thought it was gonna be some Last Samurai stuff.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, there's
White Savior.
White Savior. He's gonna save Japan. Turns out he's the total opposite of a savior.
Yeah.
It was I think my favorite part about the show It's just the fact that this white guy doesn't know Japanese, and these Japanese don't know English, and you have to watch both perspectives of them not knowing each other's language.
Yep.
And they committed to the whole, like, he's speaking English the whole time, trying his best to convey what his thoughts are, but he doesn't understand any of them, and they don't understand him.
Yep.
I think the language, the writing, and how they did the different language barriers was so good. Because finally, when you hit that point where he finally gets to have a conversation with someone that understands him,
it hits.
It hits like really well. That they finally are like on the same page and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought my favorite part about the show was. I thought it was really good how they did that writing. It was not samurai at all. In fact, I think we've only seen samurais actually fighting like twice in the whole
if
show.
that. As far as like my favorite parts, the visuals were very good, and the set design along with the like costumes, everything that everybody wore was gorgeous. It seemed authentic, and it did a really good job of putting you into that world easily. When you were watching the show, it really felt like you could have been watching it in real time. And then there was a little bit of a joke where it seemed like every episode we'd be like, for this being a Shogun show, it doesn't really have a whole lot of ninjas. And then you know what happened in that maybe 10 minutes later after we said that name? There was ninjas. We got our ninjas. And it's just like, it seemed like the show knew exactly what it was doing at all times.
Yeah, it was a lot more political than I thought, but I think it was pretty interesting to see Japanese politics, because I guess when you think about it, there's not really much politics you see in like animes and stuff. It's mostly about the fighting, right? It's about the whole, you're the main character, you're a badass, you got a sword, who needs to do political talks? Just slice up the bad guys, you know? But this show is like 99% like, oh, we're talking, we're making plans, we're doing all these shenanigans.
And very true to the culture of what it means to be in that world, and like the different ways that people communicate that white people just don't have. And there's a certain sense of honor, a certain sense of dedication, societal expectations. Were all of those were in the show, and you don't always get that fleshed out very well, but the show did very good on doing that.
You know what I liked about the whole like honor system and like their culture? They managed to show off how cool it is to have like that honor and discipline in your planning, but at the same time they also show you just as much like why that sucks.
I mean, they buried it deep inside of you as to why, like, wow, there's a reason they're not like that anymore. Like, the people committing seppuku and just offing themselves because that's what their culture tells them to do is crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. That like just the smallest of mistake, and they're like, well, the next logical step, I gotta kill myself. I'm sorry, I messed up, and it's time to off me over there.
Yep.
It is. So they do a good job of showing off like why being a samurai or like just a Japanese person is cool, but also why it's fucked up too at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think the choice of a main character being a foreigner really outlines the ugliness of all of that, because he doesn't understand Japanese, so he doesn't get to understand why the honor thing is cool and like very good for their culture, like why they think that way, because he doesn't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
All he can see is just the ugly parts of them. Them fucking killing one of his comrades through boiling, which was crazy, by the way.
Yeah. What a first episode.
That was a wild way for them to really show that, like, yeah, Japanese people are a little fucked up. But I thought, the fact that he could understand them, it really shows that all he can see is just the ugly side of them.
And that's why he calls them savages and barbarians.
Yeah, which ironically enough, they also call him that, right? So it's just a matter of perspective.
Yep.
Which is really crazy. Do you have but like I said, like they show off the ugly parts, right? But then they do show off parts where being a samurai is cool, like the part where that lady's trying to walk out of that palace, and her guards were like fighting them off as best they could.
Yeah.
I was really loving that scene, because I was like, wow, this whole show we've been seeing how fucked up this whole duty to honor shit is, but now we actually get to see it being cool for once, even though the samurais got fucking destroyed. But it was still cool. They went down fighting, which I really liked.
I think one of my favorite parts in the show is when the main guy, the big leader, his son decides to do a mission to assassinate his uncle,
Yep.
and just fucking beefs it on a wet rock and kills himself instantly. And the dad uses it to his political advantage and gives himself a whole month or something like that to now plan what he's gonna do. And he's like, yeah, it sucks that my son died, but he's given us some valuable time to plot.
Dude, that guy was a big brain thinker. He was planning for the long con.
Yeah, his long con for sure.
I also like that they never actually said the word Shogun that much on the show, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The few times that they say the word Shogun is when it like really matter.
Yeah.
Which is basically when the dad is like, hey, you want to be Shogun, right? He's like, I do, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I do want to be Shogun, but I ain't going to tell anybody.
Right.
So I guess that makes it more cooler because then like, it's not just a word that they throw around willingly. You know, it's like, oh, you only say it when you mean for it.
I have no idea where they're going to take the show, and I'm very interested to see what season 2 has to show us.
My guess is they're building up towards this big war.
Yeah.
And I think that's what season 2 is going to be about.
Okay.
I'm curious to see where the white guy falls in all of this, because there's going to be a giant war between the dad and everybody.
Yep.
And then I don't know what the white guy's going to be. Can I just tell you how much I love the white guy's role? He's basically just the ultimate jester. They just keep him around to be a clown.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy does a really good job at playing that character. He has qualities of a main protagonist that are what you would expect. You know, like, oh, he does have honor, or he does have morals. But at the same time, he's not afraid to let his culture show as well, and to show them that not always are their line of thinking the only line of thinking that exists.
Yeah, he tries his best to do things that he can.
Yep.
Damn, he's in a rough handicap in a land that he doesn't know. He got fucking kidnapped, and then his group got separated. But you know, it's like what I said. He could use a gun if he got a gun. Turns out he's a good fighter.
And we've seen him with the gun, and geez, what a handicap he was fighting at without it.
Yeah, I think if he had a gun, he definitely would do way more. He'd be able to do way more fighting.
Mm-hmm.
He got a gun. I was telling you the whole time, I was like, I bet he's pretty good with a gun, and he could probably be a capable fighter if they just give him a chance. And then he gets a gun, and also he's blasting fools. He's killing those samurais like it's nothing.
Yep.
Which I'm assuming once he gets his ship back, because he's a
pirate.
He's a pirate, so I'm assuming if he gets his ship back, he'll finally be able to even the odds.
Yep.
Right? You're a pirate against the nation of Japan. You got pretty good advantage on your side.
Yep.
You know how to use gunpowder and shit. Like, you got the advantage.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what they do for season 2. I think maybe that's what he might end up doing for his role. He might get his ship back.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna fucking do some pirate stuff, which is gonna be cool.
He's got to have a fleet of ships or something that he turns the tide of battle towards their way in some way. I think you know, with him being the main character, I think they're gonna shoehorn him in some way to have a more important role in the war.
For sure. He's, from what they've been joking around with, they're like, oh, you're our fleet captain. They're probably gonna try to make him a fleet captain, but he's gonna eventually betray them.
Yep.
Because he wants to do his own thing. But I do like that he has that expertise, that he's being handicapped to not be able to show.
Yeah.
Once you get him in his rightful situations, I think he'll be a pretty strong force to contend with. So I am excited to see what season 2 has. I'm excited to see what they do. I will say I don't know how he's gonna do things by himself because because of what happened between him and his love interests.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's gonna proceed after that happened.
Well, now he's vengeful.
Yeah, guess so. I guess so. A vengeful revenge against the dad. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I hope that we do get more fight scenes.
Yeah.
Because it is. I enjoyed the political stuff. I have a lot of fun watching them do all these plannings in the shadows. But you know, sometimes I just want to see samurais being samurais and killing each other.
Yep.
And I want to see that in the second season.
Absolutely.
Once the war hits, I better see some fucking swords clashing, katanas clashing and shit. Did you like how they gave him his own katanas that he doesn't fucking know how to use them?
Yeah, they're just
He just carries them like props.
Yeah, exactly. They're all for visuals, you know, and like I mean, I guess that's the whole point, right? In that culture, it's a not a sentimental thing, but it's a cultural thing where
It's a sign of your rank,
Yeah.
or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Nobility.
Mhm.
Which is even crazy that he even has any nobility. He managed to get any kind of title on him.
right place at the right time.
Yeah, he got lucky. I guess that's his best.
Best trait.
Best trait. He's just a lucky guy, and one day I think the luck is gonna help him out. He's gonna be on a ship, and it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited to watch the second season. I don't know when it's airing, but it'll probably next year or so.
Yeah.
I believe Shogun's pretty fresh still.
Yep.
Off the minds.
And if I remember correctly, it's a FX show, and they're usually pretty good at doing their yearly releases, or like at least being what's the word? I'm blanking on the word.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be a yearly release.
Yeah, they're good at budgeting themselves. They're good at expenses. I'm looking forward to it. I am excited to see what the next season will have.
Me too.
We've also been watching some Forged in Fire, which is a show I never knew existed did not know existed until we started watching it.
Yeah, I'm glad I put that on for you because it seemed like you, as soon as you saw it, you were drawn to it pretty immediately.
Yeah, I did not know about how much work goes into making a weapon until we started watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
And comparing me to when I began watching the show to like how we are now is crazy. It's a vast difference. Cause like first episode we watched, I'm like, oh man, I guess that knife looks kind of nice. I mean, it might do the job. It might do it. It looks pretty nice. That's like the most critique I can give of a weapon when we first started watching. And now when we watch an episode, I'm like, oh, the cracks in that knife, you can see a little crack there. The pattern's a little rough. The handle's made with shitty materials. There's a little warp at the top. I think this knife is garbage, Jordan. Just throw it in the trash can.
For anyone that hasn't seen the show or doesn't know what we're talking about Forged in Fire, it's this TV show that's on the History Channel, and it's a game show where they bring in 4 contestants who, in our experience, have varying levels of experience with making weapons in some form of like a forge. And these contestants are first given a task of making a knife blade out of whatever materials the showrunners give them, and they got to make a knife to certain specifications. And if they can't do that, then they're just out. They don't get to make it to the next round. But if they do make it to the next round, eventually they're given some kind of historic weapon that they have to make, whether it's a katana or a mace or whatever, that they then have to go home and forge themselves and bring back for judging. It's just, like you said, it's very fun to see these people, especially at the earlier episodes. Some of them are clearly greenhorns. Some of them have maybe made a weapon in their life. And then others are like, yeah, I've got this whole forge in my backyard. It's got everything I need. It's fun to see these people do what they can with the resources that they have. And they even add a little bit of a historical flair to it with their using of the weapons. That's pretty unique. You don't get to always see the weapon in action, but this show does a point of making you see it.
Dude, that's like one of my favorite things about the show. One of my favorite things I love about the show is just watching the people that come in and me just telling you like, man, I can't wait to see what his house looks like. Because we've seen some wacky ass people houses.
First one that comes to mind is Ryu.
Ryu is wild.
Ryu is this Filipino who came in and was making a kukri for his first weapon, and it kind of looks like a butcher's knife. But yeah, the character that he put into this weapon just made you instantly fall for the guy. Like it wasn't like anything anybody else was making. And the whole time we're watching that episode, we're just like, what the fuck does this guy have at his house? What is he gonna be forging if he makes it through? And come to find out, it's a satellite dish that's been turned into a makeshift forge.
Yeah, he had the wildest back setup for his forge. It was crazy. It was like stuff that you can put together in like an afternoon. Like if you and I start putting stuff around the house together, we could make a forge that might be comparable to his.
Yeah, he used a flippin' hairdryer to add air to his forge.
It was wild. I can't believe he got by so far with just that setup. It's crazy how people have like the most bare bones of setup and they make it far. Turns out you can be a blacksmith with anything you got on hand if you're good enough.
Yep.
And then we've seen some other fancy setups, some wild setups. I think my favorite is definitely that one white guy that was like a weeb.
Oh, yep, the katana guy,
Yeah,
the Japanese, married a Japanese wife and everything.
Yeah, he came onto the show. He's like, yeah, I got a Japanese name. Yeah, this is my Japanese name. I'm all about the like. This guy's not a weeb. He's a old traditionalist weeb. He's one step above the weebs. He doesn't have anime in his house. He has historical Japanese katanas at his house. And they go back to his house, and it's the most Japanese thing I've ever seen.
Yep.
He's got fucking wood paper doors.
Yep.
He's got fucking katana set up. He's got old traditional posters and everything set up. And he's like, yeah, this is my dojo. It's like, I'm gonna make this cool weapon out of it. So that guy was wild. I love seeing how somebody could be so in love with Japanese stuff, but not anime. Like he just does not look at anime at all. He's just an old traditionalist Japanese man. And his setup was crazy. I was really hoping. I kind of wanted to see him make a katana just to see what he would do with it.
That would have been such an advantage to him, and you know that guy's made many a katana in his life.
I guess I just want to see what kind of katana he could make for the show.
Right.
It would have been something.
It's also nice that there's like 10 seasons that have been released, because when we're watching an episode, both you and I are like, man, I wonder if they made this weapon before. And after that episode, we can go search through the big catalog of 10 seasons, and more often than not, we found every single weapon we've ever wanted to see be made.
Yeah, there's still a few episodes I still want to watch weapons I want to watch. I still want to see what a mace looks like, because they never made a mace. They make too much bladed weapons. Yep. We've seen a lot of blade weapons now, and I want to see what a mace looks like.
Yeah.
And even more than that, I want to see what a shield looks like. I want
shield or hammer even.
Yeah. I want to see what a shield looks like. Like, how do you do testing for a shield? Is it really everything's going to be attacking your shield, and let's just see how strong it is?
Will it kill?
No, it's will it block, Jordan. Will it block? But I do want to see what a shield episode is like. I want to see what the testing of that is done. How much pressure it could take. So I am excited for that. And there's always episodes that will always surprise us too. Like, when we don't know what to watch, we just look at the titles of each episode and be like, this weapon looks cool, and then we just go right into it.
Yep.
It's a shame that I like the Twin Hooks episode. It's a shame they never did the spinning test. Unfortunately, I wish they did that. It would have been cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, when someone's weapon malfunctions, they don't go through with the testing. So there's been episodes where we're like, oh, this weapon, it's gonna kill, it's gonna cut. I want to see him cut that fucking playing card deck. And then it just doesn't happen because the other guy's weapon broke in the first test.
It's a shame that we never got to see that playing card test. It would have been so cool.
Yeah. Yep.
We did, there was one episode where two people made really good weapons, and we never got to see it being tested because the third guy just got disqualified.
Yep.
Which was a shame. I think that was the playing card.
They should still go through with it, just to make us happy.
Yeah, but I guess they didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then they make the final weapon, which is always cool. I always like the fact that they send them home. Like, all right, your force that you've known your whole life, you can use that to make this weapon, whatever resources you got.
Yep.
And I like that they get a home field opportunity to make something too. Like, it would have bothered me if they just stayed on the set the whole episode.
Yeah.
Because you want them to feel like they're at their best. And I feel like the final round, sending them home to make a weapon with their own forge is probably like, this is the best that they can do.
Yeah.
With their current movesets and with their current resources, and some of them really come through. Ryu came through with his fucking backyard weapon that he made.
Well, it's also really nice because when they're doing the contest in the recording studio or whatever, the forge that they've made, they've got like 8 hours to make their weapons, but it's broken up into 4-hour sections. But when they go home, they've got 4 or 5 days to make their weapon of what they've been given, and it's nice to see that by no means is 4 or 5 days a lot to be making a weapon, but at least it's not 8 hours. It gives them a lot more time to work with to make an actual weapon to be proud of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having 5 days to do it, probably not a comfortable time span for them for such a weapon, but at least they get to be at home.
Yep.
They get to be home, they get to spend like 4 or 5 days on it, so do whatever they can to make it work. I like it when they have to make their own weapons. I really enjoy that part a lot. That's why that one episode that we watched where they were facing the judges, I didn't really like that series just because, like, I feel like it's just the same show, but they just speed up a lot of the moments.
Yeah, the judge version of the show where the contestant goes up against the judge was just not the same feel. It just doesn't give you the same experience as the original show does. And unfortunately, I don't know that I really want to watch any more of the judge show unless it's like our last choice. With how many episodes are in the regular show, I don't know if we'll ever have to, but it's almost depressing that the other one isn't as good as the original.
Not to mention the price is still the same. You're
Yeah.
doing way more work for the same amount of money.
Yep.
Like imagine being on a cooking show for 10,000, but it's still the same 10,000 prize pool. But now you face a 3-star Michelin chef at the
Yeah.
end.
Now you get to go against Bobby Flay. Like it's
Like,
it's
all right,
great.
good luck. Good luck getting one of the best chefs in the world for 10K, the same amount of money
Yep.
in the old show, and you just have to be a bunch of other people like you instead. I definitely did miss. I missed the knife part. I think the knife part definitely what bugs me out about the new show.
Yeah.
Cause like when they start, the knives already done. They just brought it in. They just tested. I'm like, but from our experience watching the show, so many things go wrong during the knife
Yep.
process, and I like seeing how they deal
Yeah.
with that.
The beginning test is such a good way of already seeing if this person is good at doing what they do. If their metal is delaminating, and if you get to watch them fix that and what process they're doing to fix that, you're like, damn, this guy knows what he's doing. But if you didn't see that process, you don't have that character build. You don't have anything to build off of. There's no like intimacy there between the viewer and the contestant.
I would even argue that it's probably not even worth having them bring in their knives for
Yeah.
the new show, because like it's not like we saw them make it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could show me 4 people's knives, I wouldn't be able to tell you whose knife is good.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see the process. The only thing that really matters is the second part, which they go home and make a weapon. Like you might as well just skip forward to that part.
Yeah,
if you're
that's
gonna
all
do
it
it
should
like
be
this.
then, if that's the case.
The knife definitely tells a big. I know why they skipped the knife part. Probably because a lot of audience members didn't like the knife part. They thought it was boring. They probably think that like, oh, you're just making a knife. That's not cool. It's not a katana.
Yeah.
But I like that. Like making a knife is all about showing us how good your fundamentals are and your knowledge, and it really shows us that like, oh, this guy deserves to be in the final round because he's got what it takes.
Yeah.
And seeing that is really cool. It's really informative of how their styles are, how they work, and it really cements them as like, this guy deserves to be in the final round because he did a good job.
Yep.
Versus the new show, which is like from the very get go, I have no idea who's good.
Yeah,
even after
exactly.
seeing the knives test, like whatever knives they bring, even after seeing the testing, I couldn't tell you who actually made their knives well,
Right.
because we didn't see them make it.
Well, and even to bring it a step further in the original show, I'd say half of the episodes, at least one contestant has to start over new. There's been contestants that have had to restart their blade as many as 3 times. And in the new show, you just don't get to see that as part of it. You don't know if they had to restart. And some of the contestants are... The only reason you're rooting for them is because they haven't given up. Like, they're giving it their all. They will not stop doing the job.
Jordan, if you were on the show, how many retries is enough for you?
As many as it takes.
You would go all the way to the end.
Well, this is like the one competition where, like, you're not going to quit. You know what I mean? Like, you're on this show, it's got to be so much fun, but also so exhausting at the same time. But you got to put in that medal.
Yeah, just for you, 4 hours in their forge.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I feel bad for those people that have to start over like 3 times though.
Oh, but we've seen them make it through
We have.
because they chose to redo their blade while somebody else decided not to, and the person who didn't remake their blade now has a crack in their blade, and the contestants won't even judge it because didn't meet their parameters and they're just gone.
Yeah, there's always hope for. If there's anything I learned about this show, it's that no matter how bad you think your blade is, somebody made a worse blade.
Yeah.
You just don't know
Yeah.
yet.
Yep.
Sometimes I feel like half the time we watch these knife segments, it's never about who has the best knife, it's who has the least worst knife.
Yep.
Which is really crazy that like a good majority of this show is that. It's like that. You all fucked up, but who fucked up the most?
It's funny. It's like when you're in the woods and you're being chased by a bear. You don't have to run faster than the bear. You just have to run faster than your friend that can't outrun the bear.
Yeah. Which is a little crazy. It's actually pretty rare for us to see an episode where people actually come on their A game and make like real good looking knives that we want to see tested. And unfortunately, one of the few times we saw that, we didn't get to see them being tested.
Yep.
Just didn't happen, which is sad. So I do like them testing knives. I like the process, whether it's good or bad, to see like how people adjust to it, how people get it done.
Who would you recommend the show to?
Who would I recommend the show to? If you like weapons, medieval weapons specifically.
Yeah.
You like medieval weapons, and you've always wondered like how much work is put into making that weapon, or how much like just how much work, how the process is. You just want to see what can go wrong with making a knife. It's a good show to be informative, but also entertain you at the same time. It's not the type of show they'll play in your history class. It's not a boring documentary. It's a competition, so there's stuff at stake, and you actually do learn a lot. Like one thing for me is like I didn't know how important a handle was.
Yeah.
Coming into this show, you think of knives and you think of katanas or whatever weapons you think of, and you just think of the metal part. You think of the blade. You think like, oh man, that blade's gotta be real good. It better cut real well. And then many people don't think about how good a handle is.
Yeah.
Until I started watching this show, I'm like, there's been shows where we both look at each other like, man, that guy's handle is trash. And that'll be the reason he's gonna lose.
Yeah.
And then he lost.
Yeah, exactly.
All because of a handle. Like your handle was shitty.
Yep.
That's it. It's crazy how important a handle is that people don't really think about. Just the fact that you're holding the blade, that matters a lot in weapon making, more than the blade sometimes.
Yeah, there have been episodes where there's two very well-made knives going against each other. And the determining factor was, well, this knife was fantastic, and this knife was fantastic. But this one, when I stabbed it into the jug, it kind of rolled into my hand, and that's because of the handle. So that's why we're going to have to send you home. It's like, wow, just because you didn't sand down your handle enough or something, that's why you're no longer making it through.
Yeah, and if people listening don't see why handles are such a big deal, that's why I would say watch the show. You'll see how big of a deal a handle is to a weapon.
Yep.
The thing that you're grabbing when you're stabbing somebody, it matters a lot more than you think. I also would recommend the show to people who just like knives. I think if you're a knife fanatic, you're gonna love this show.
Yeah.
There's so much knives to be made. That's the first round, like we were talking about. It's the first round of almost every episode. So the fact that like if you just love knives, like forget about fancy weapons like katanas and shit.
Yeah.
If you just like knives in general, this show any episode you'll be satisfied because I feel like every episode they're making a knife. You get to see how they make a knife, and we see some pretty fucking cool knives.
Some good looking knives.
And we've all seen some really ugly looking knives.
Oh, but they chop.
They chop. I'm assuming your favorite knife is the same as my favorite knife.
That
The
fucking
axe knife.
They made like a Fallout inspired apocalyptic axe, which is not a knife if you're asking. But they took it. They were happy to take it. It won.
Somebody made an axe out of a knife. But if you wonder how insane the knives are, they got a big handle, got a big axe edge and everything, and they played it straight to the end. They're like, "Yep, this is a knife." don't ask questions. Everybody looks at it and they know it's a fucking axe. But he just made a fucking axe and he's just like, "This is my knife.
Yep.
I made this cool knife."
Oh, such a good show.
And people fucking if you want to see people make the craziest of knives or the coolest of knives, there's both.
Yep.
There's some knives I've seen where I'm like, damn, that knife looks good.
I want that knife.
Like I would buy that knife, you know. It is crazy for knife fanatics for sure. I wouldn't recommend it if you came in looking for anime weapons. Like you're not getting that.
Yeah. This is purely historical. These are weapons that have existed in time, and a lot of the times it's very well-known weapons that have even like turned the tide of battle in the past, as far as like weapon advancement and stuff like that.
Yeah, they got real good historical weapons. Don't come in if you're looking for anime, but if you have interest in historical weapons, you will definitely be satisfied by what they got. They make some cool weapons, and sometimes you just want to see how good a claymore is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to see. So maybe you don't. Maybe you're not just a katana person your whole life. You want to see what a Zweihandler can do. You know, that kind of stuff is real cool. I like how they make it. I like how people have to go back to their houses and make it. So
Yep.
the process is good. I'm always, and of course, you know the thing we watch on Hulu, right?
Yep.
It doesn't even have all the seasons on it. Can you imagine if we got access to the other seasons?
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 seasons that aren't on Hulu.
Which one day we're gonna pull those up.
Oh,
We're gonna
yeah.
watch those.
Yeah.
I want to see what's on the list of things we haven't seen.
You know, it's kind of funny because even though there's probably about 6 seasons on Hulu, but it was like the only thing we were watching for I think like 2 weeks straight. I think we got through a good chunk of the show.
What's crazy is we got through a good chunk, but there's still so much more that we
Yeah.
have not gotten through, which
Yep.
I like. I like that. I like knowing that there will always be more
Yeah.
if we want more.
Yep.
And also, like, you know, Asians have a high win percentage on this show.
They do. They're not on often, but when they are, they win.
Dude, that one guy won 8 in a row. That was crazy.
Oh, don't spoil it for them if they end up going watching it. That was they do an episode, well, they do a competition that's like 5 episodes long, and there's one guy that just really won me and Nang over.
I like that he did. I think I'm a fan of his just because his blacksmithing style is pretty much what I imagine mine would be. Just fully just pure fundamentals of just knowing how to do it. No style. None of his weapons had any style to them. They were just boring
Yep.
weapons. It's the Lance of Monster Hunter, basically. You're just there to be consistently good.
Yep.
Just get the job done. There's no style, no flashiness.
Just meet the requirements.
Just meet the requirements. And I've seen like his work is good.
Yep.
A lot of times in the competitions where his weapons being compared, it really just came down to how good his blade was, and that's where he put his work into it.
Never put any work into a handle.
His handle was a character arc to watch his handle making skills from the beginning to how he ended up towards the end. It was really rough. You could definitely tell that he was a blade man, not a handle man. He was a blade man, not a handle man.
Yep.
But every time where the blades mattered, his came through. His worked out. It's disappointing to see that he never got to make a medieval weapon, like a European weapon, though.
Right.
I wanted to see him make like a mace or something to see how get him outside his comfort zone.
Yeah, you could tell that everybody was avoiding the shield and the mace. No one wanted to have to make either of those.
Dang, you don't think somebody will be experiencing a shield?
Wow. I guess we'll just have to wait for that episode.
Yeah, the shield episode. I would like to see how much experience they do have in a shield. But damn, good show. Like it a lot. I'm looking forward to more episodes for sure.
Yeah.
I think it'll be real fun. Well, Jordan, I didn't know this before I moved in with you, but you apparently have some traditions that you like to do every year.
Yeah.
And we're coming up on our Halloween one. In fact, I think we just finished the Halloween one. Can you tell me about your traditions?
Yeah, so I have always been a big fan of watching all sorts of different TV shows and movies, and the ones that have always stuck with me are the ones that I like to put on a yearly rotation to watch. In October, I have a watch list that I like to go through and watch it throughout the month of October, and the same for December. And I'm sure you could tell what those two usually entail. October is usually a spooky month with some scary movies and just some October-y themed shows and movies. And December is always Christmas themed. This last week, me and you started the Harry Potter movies. We watched every movie, a different one each day, except for this last Friday and Saturday. We did double features on Friday and Saturday to finish them, so that we would be able to talk to them about them today on Sunday. The Harry Potter movies are really important to me in the sense that when I was a kid, really young, when the first book came out, my mom would read me those books before bed. And so it's always just been a soft spot. It's a place of nostalgia. I have a really deep love for them. And so that's why they're on my October watch list. And you've watched them before, but not necessarily as in depth or in a one after the other kind of way. So it seemed like a perfect opportunity to have you go through them with me.
So just to answer the first initial question, why do you view Harry Potter series as a Halloween and not a Christmas show
Well,
movie?
they both are. The movies do a good job of planting themselves in seasons. When you're watching a Harry Potter movie, you've always got, oh, this is the fall season during this filming, or oh, this is the Christmas filming of this season, or whatever. And I think that they did a really smart decision in that to make it so that, oh, you don't have to watch Harry Potter just during October. You can watch it any time of the year. But Harry Potter's always been in October for me just because, oh, it's witches, it's goblins, ghouls. It's a little bit spooky when you think about like Voldemort and who he is. I think it just fits that October time frame a little bit better. But yeah.
Well, in terms of the Harry Potter movies, I haven't seen them in a very long time. It has been probably like a decade since I've seen any Harry Potter movie. So it was an interesting return to see a childhood book that I haven't read in a very long time or seen.
Mm-hmm.
And we try, obviously, we're going to enjoy as much as we can. We try not to think about the person behind the books.
You separate the artist from the material or whatever.
So we went in with that mindset. Otherwise, if we just went into the mindset of keeping J.K. Rowling at the back of our minds, we'll be really biased towards everything.
Yeah, and by no means do either of us think that she's a good person, and I think some of even her writing isn't necessarily the best either. But they are children's books.
Mm-hmm. So we try to keep that mentality in mind as we were watching all the movies. So now that we finished it, I definitely came out with a different, interesting perspective on the movies as a whole.
How did your perspective change on them after watching them again?
Before we watched them, I've always thought the Harry Potters were just all style, no substance.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've always thought of the Harry Potter series.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you sell them on the idea of witches, wizards, magic world, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, once you walk into the door, you notice that there's nothing there, nothing else to kind of fill in the depth. Coming out of it, I'm pleasantly surprised to find out that Harry Potter actually has good world building.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I thought that the world building would just kind of be there in the first like few movies, because obviously the later movies it starts getting to a serious dark storyline, so less time for world building stuff.
Yeah.
But they managed to keep that world building going throughout all the movies, even like up to the final battle and stuff against Voldemort. Like, it's all the whole like wand stuff and like the Deathly Hallows. Like, they still managed to keep the world building going. And if there's one compliment I can give to J.K. Rowling, world building is definitely her strengths as a writer, because for sure it isn't character writing or plot writing. But I could definitely tell that, like, I kind of don't think J.K. Rowling even really cared about her plot or characters in her books. She was there to make a good world, and you could really tell that's what her goal was.
Okay.
And I think the world building was a lot more better than I remembered, and it pleasantly surprised me at how well built the world is of Harry Potter.
Did you feel that way right off the bat at the first movie, or did it take a couple for you to kind of come to that?
I knew that the first movie had good world building, so like when we were watching the first movie, I came out of being like, yeah, this is what I remembered. It has some good world building, shenanigans, stuff like that. It was definitely the later movies where my memory was like, oh yeah, this is where the world building starts to fall off, stuff like that. But it never did. It just kept going. They added a fucking prison.
Yep.
They added the Ministry of Magic. They added fucking Horcruxes and Deathly Hallows and Half-Blood Prince. They just kept adding more in a way that didn't feel like it was overcomplicating the plot. So I will give J.K. Rowling credit for that. She did a good job with her world building, and I think that's her biggest strength. She definitely wanted to just make a cool wizard world for everybody.
Yeah.
A cool wizard world full of white people.
Yeah. Before we really started the movies, I asked you how much you knew of the world and like if you had a favorite character. And you said that your favorite character was always Snape out of the stories. Was there any characters after watching this a second time that stuck out to you, or maybe rivaled Snape.
Oh, for sure. The more movies we watch, the more I realize that damn, Hermione's a pretty powerful character. It's just that she doesn't get to do much.
Yeah, yeah.
For Hermione, I think out of the main trio, definitely Hermione's my favorite character. I liked. I mean, probably because I see Hermione a little bit of myself. Like I totally would have a fucking bag of holding and just carry everything in it.
Yeah.
And then I probably would know as much spells as I could for utility purposes, not necessarily for killing.
Right.
So I've definitely liked how well prepared Hermione always was, even though everybody always fucking thinks she's annoying. Like the Ron and Harry's like, man, she's always bugging us about shit.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes you need that person to bug you about shit. You know? Sometimes you need someone to stay on your toes, and that's who I imagine I would be if I was a wizard. So I do ended up liking Hermione a lot. I wish she had more to do in the main story, because like once Voldemort comes back, it's just the Voldemort and Harry show, and then like much. Hermione and Ron just kind of sits in the back.
Yeah, they're on the sidelines.
So
do you have a favorite movie?
Do I have a favorite movie? Ooh. See, I was going to try to do a challenge of rating the movies in order.
Yeah. Well, do you think you could be able to do that right now, right here? Top 3?
I can do top 3. It gets a little muddled towards like the below average to low.
Yeah.
Like all the movies start blending together.
Yeah.
But I can do top 3.
Okay.
I like. Give me a second to think here. I think at number 3, it's probably the first movie. I think the first movie, the biggest compliment I can give the first movie is the fact that it sets up the world so well, and you can't blame anybody for falling in love with the Harry Potter movie, because I think the movie did such a good job of introducing the world, the concept of being a wizard. It did such a good job at just introducing you to this world that I can see why every 10-year-old in existence at the time fell for it. It did such a good job at capturing the whimsical fantasy of being a wizard, while also showing you at the same time that, like, oh yeah, you want to be a badass? Oh, it's right there. You're gonna get to be a badass eventually. You know. And there was a lot of stuff I liked in the first movie that they never brought back for later movies. Like I was telling you, I loved the fact that school actually mattered in the first few films. Like they actually had to take classes and learn how to be a better witch and wizard through the classes. I liked that a lot. I liked how school is an important part of their lives. And the later movies we go, the less school becomes important, because they're just eventually just not going to school. In the last movie, they don't even go to school at all.
Right.
So I liked the school a lot. And like a big part of why people fell in love with Harry Potter is Hogwarts. You can't deny that, you know. That's why the game is in Hogwarts.
Exactly.
Would a Harry Potter game that took place somewhere else be as good? No.
Look at the Fantastic Beasts movies. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. And so number 1 was my third favorite, because it's the perfect movie to set that up, which is why I'm telling you right now that the TV show they're trying to readapt the stories. Good luck trying to pull that magic off again, because that was magic that I don't think you can pull off for the second time.
Exactly.
It is.
It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
Yeah, so good luck with that. Like, I feel like in the TV show that they're trying to make of retelling the story, the first episode where you introduce Hogwarts, that's like the make or break moment.
Yeah.
Essentially, if people don't fall in love with Hogwarts after that first episode, like your series is pretty much done.
Yep.
Nobody cares about Hogwarts, then your show failed. And they did a good job with the movie. My second favorite is Prisoner of Azkaban.
I knew that would be on your top.
It's such a basic answer, because everyone says Prisoner of Azkaban's good, and I do agree it's good. The writing's good. I like that it's a serious story, but it's more serious in more ways than one. The pun. I like that it is. I like how personal the story was, and I'm not saying that Voldemort versus Harry wasn't personal, but sometimes it didn't really feel like it was personal. Like, one thing that always kind of bothered me between like movies 5 and like 7 about the whole Voldemort versus Harry is they always have to kind of remind you that Voldemort is there instead of making that the main focus.
Yeah.
Like, it's always like, oh, look at all this shit going on, and at the end of the day, by the way, Voldemort's still alive. Yeah. You know? So I always never was that big of a fan of the Harry versus Voldemort storyline, just because it always feels like it was a back end thing that they'll get to later. Whereas in Prisoner of Azkaban, like, the main story is about Sirius. I feel like Sirius even though Sirius was not a bad guy in the end, I do think up until that point where it was revealed he wasn't a bad guy, I feel like he was a more threatening villain than Harry. It felt more personal like his vengeance on wanting to kill Sirius. I felt like it was way more personal than Voldemort was. Um, I really liked that everything that was happening was about just Harry. Like there was no giant political game to take over the Ministry of Magic or anything like that. It was just this dude fucked over your parents, and now he's presumably coming here to kill you. You better be ready, you know. And that was all the story was. It was just him dealing with the guy that betrayed his parents, and I liked how personal it was, and obviously the twist in it makes it even better. Of like, oh, he's not actually a bad guy, you know. It turns out, and of course, biggest prop is it's probably. Apparently, it wasn't J.K. Rowling's writing, but the time traveling was really good. I thought it was shockingly good how well they did that.
Yeah.
In a movie, because
props to the director.
Yeah, it definitely. You said that it was a movie original thing that they kind of like retweaked it a lot, and I can see that because I can imagine J.K.'s attempt at time traveling would not go very well. Because you told me a little bit about how the Prison of Azkaban time travel went, and I also heard about like the books where they try to stop Cedric from getting killed. I heard that it was very messy, so I was like, yeah, maybe it was best the director took over that part for the time traveling. But the time traveling was done very well. I liked it, and honestly, I thought that was gonna be my number one movie. Once we finished the series, something really surprised me towards the back half of the week.
Yeah.
Because my number one movie was definitely Order of Phoenix.
Wow.
I liked Order of the Phoenix a lot. I liked how dark it was. Like immediately the tone was just totally different. It's just all serious, which to a lot of people they probably give it lower points because of the tone shift. But for me it gave me more points. I gave it more points for the tone shift. I loved how fucking dark it is. I loved how I love that everybody's like, yeah, this shit's not, we can't go back to being a carefree, innocent little child anymore. We're gonna die, you know?
Yep.
And then, like, he goes and fucking teaches them. I love the part where Harry becomes a teacher. And, like, his opening lines of being a teacher is literally like, you're gonna fucking die. Like,
he's not gonna sugarcoat this.
He's not sugarcoating at all. He's like, you're gonna fucking die if you take my class, but you know, I'll teach you how to defend yourself.
Yep.
So I love that Harry had to face the reality of that, and like he had to be a teacher, which I thought was really cool. I actually don't have much to say about Umbridge. I don't. So that's crazy that like it's my favorite movie, but I don't have anything to say about Umbridge. Umbridge was just kind of there.
Yeah.
She was being an Asian teacher, you know. Maybe that's why I don't have much to say about it because it's very familiar to my lifestyle. So I'm like, oh, okay, she's being your typical Asian parent. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But I liked how dark it was. I think it was also a good setup to the next few movies too. Of like shit's happening. We're resetting the tone of the series. This is where we start. It's past the halfway point. Shit's getting serious. I liked how they did all that. So the Order of the Phoenix definitely. Even though the Order itself didn't really do anything in the end, I liked the story for more of what Harry had to do during that movie, and not for the Order itself. I just liked what Harry had to do. Obviously, the whole series dying, it was a big deal, and all that stuff. So I like that movie specifically because of like Harry, you have to grow in this movie or else you lose, and I really like that. What's your top three?
Ooh, top three.
It's a hard challenge for you.
Number 3 for me would probably have to be Goblet of Fire.
Oh, okay.
I really like seeing the different schools come together. And the competitions I thought were really cool. Starting off with a fucking dragon was epic. And then having like little bits and clues that you had to figure out through the rest of it to actually even just survive the Triwizard Tournament was a big part of it for me. Also, Mad-Eye Mooney, even though, spoiler alert, it's not the real Mad-Eye, I actually really fell in love with that character.
I like that guy a lot too, like the fake version. I feel like if they just didn't do the whole like, oh, he's a traitor thing, and they just kept it serious, like this is just Mad-Eye, this is who he is, he's your teacher, I think he would have been a really good teacher. He had dynamic to him. He had a presence.
Just a really well written character in my opinion. And then obviously the end of it where Cedric dies and we finally see Voldemort come to like full power, so to speak.
In his full power, glorious, goofy look.
Was pretty ominous. Number 2 is probably Half-Blood Prince because I didn't actually know when I was going into it that Snape was the Half-Blood Prince.
Oh.
And so I was always, when I first watched it, curious as to who it was. And I just really like the comedy that's in that one. I think I laugh more in that movie than any other one. You do get to see a little bit more of like the inner workings of school, the drama between love triangles, the teachers. Also, Horace Slughorn is probably my favorite teacher of all.
Okay.
Just there's something about his he's so worried about how people perceive him that I think is a really honest way to live life. You could say through it all that he was a coward and that he was very fearful, but he did at the end do what was right. And I think anybody in his shoes would have probably gone a similar route, giving Voldemort the information about Horcruxes and being a teacher to Voldemort in the first place. I don't know. I think it's one of the more grounded teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the actor did a really good job of playing that character.
All right.
And then number 1 is probably Deathly Hallows Part 2, just because it is the finale. I think that they tied it all up very well in a nice little bow. It gave you a little bit of everything that you wanted. Even a little bit of a happy ending at the end when Harry got to send his kids off to Hogwarts now that there is no more fear or danger.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my top 3.
Now, this may be a hard question for you, but do you have a least favorite movie?
Least favorite movie would probably be... it is between Chamber of Secrets and Order of the Phoenix.
Okay.
And the reason that it's between those is because I felt like Chamber of the Secrets was more just of the number 1. I didn't think it separated itself enough from the first movie to where it kind of didn't feel like it was branching out enough. The end fight is very similar to the end fight in Sorcerer of Stone, in my opinion, except it's a snake instead of Quirrell.
Yep.
And then Order of the Phoenix, because I really dislike Umbridge. And maybe that's a testament to the character and the writing and the actor, but I hate her so much that I feel like it starts to detract from the movie for me.
Ah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's probably... Yeah, I guess it goes down when you think about Umbridge. That's why when I was talking about why it's my favorite, I didn't talk about Umbridge at all.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of omitting her from the story. I even pointed that out during the movie when we were watching it. Like, oh yeah, Umbridge is in this movie. Because so much shit happened up to the point where like you remember that like, oh yeah, she's the teacher.
Yeah.
Like so much shit happened up to that point before you realized that. I was like, oh, that's right, Umbridge is in this movie. I forgot.
Right. Well, it's like in all the other movies, Hogwarts is always a school where you want to be there, right? You want to be with your friends, you're goofing off, but you're also still doing your work and you're learning how to be a wizard. But in Order of the Phoenix, it's like the first time in the movies where, fuck, I don't want to be here. This is a Nazi camp. Like, you can't do anything fun. People are coming down on you. They're making it so you can't spend more time with, like, more than one person at a time. You can't be in a group of 3. Like, all these Nazi rules are coming down, and it's like, wow, I just don't want to fucking be here.
Maybe that's why I liked it, because I like seeing what they did to get around the rules. I like
Yeah.
seeing their underground classes. I like seeing how they try to fight against the rules. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it a lot. I like that process. My least favorite movie, and it's tied, like you said, between Chamber of Secrets and another one, but I don't think it's Chamber of Secrets. It's just like what you said. I think the Chamber of Secrets is a forgettable movie. Like if you just went from Sorcerer's Stone straight to Prisoner of Azkaban, I don't think anything would change.
Right.
Because the most important thing you learn about in the second movie is that Harry can speak Parseltongue.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's like the most important thing you learn.
And like maybe that like Tom Riddle is Voldemort.
Yeah. But they were gonna tell you that in the later movies anyway, so
Yeah.
it's like you would eventually put it together, you know? And like I don't think the Sword of Gryffindor was that important in the second movie. It didn't get much love in it. It was just a random sword. At the time, it was just a random sword that appeared out of nowhere, and he just grabbed it. He just grabbed it and killed the snake. And you didn't realize how big of a deal that sword actually was until like much, much later.
Right.
But in the second movie at the time, the sword just kind of appeared out of nowhere, like a Deus Ex Machina, pretty much, and just like,
Honestly,
all right,
yeah.
you beat the boss with this, you know. So I feel like if they just skipped the second movie and just went straight to the third movie of Prison of Azkaban, like nothing much would have changed. The story probably would have been better without it, because like the stakes of the second movie were so, even though people were supposedly dying, it felt so low stakes of like almost nothing was nothing bad was happening.
Yeah.
Like even you can't even say that like Voldemort wasn't even doing anything in the second movie. He was just kind of there.
Yeah, he was like
It was just
all in the shadows. Like it was all through the book and Ginny,
Yeah.
and you didn't really even get to see much of that.
Yeah, like he didn't even do much. It was just the book that was doing stuff.
Yeah.
The book was more of a villain than Voldemort was in the second movie. But I think my least favorite movie, even beyond that, it's gotta be Goblet of Fire. I don't
Really?
I guess I was really bummed out by how poorly they did the tournament arc.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I would have loved to see. Obviously, I would like to see more than just Harry doing the challenges. I wanted to see how everybody did the challenges.
Yeah, they should have showed us how everybody fought the dragons.
Also, I'm also disappointed that there wasn't really a straight up like PvP competition.
Oh, sure.
I wanted to see a duel. I wanted to see Harry duel the Russian dude and that kind of stuff. I wanted him to duel Cedric. You know, I wish you had a tournament arc in your series and you could definitely tell J.K. Rowling did not watch anime, so she didn't know how to do a good tournament arc.
Okay.
And I think that's what really bugged me. And then the whole Voldemort doing a ritual at the end of it. It really felt like it was just like J.K. Rowling realizing, oh yeah, that's right, I gotta put Voldemort in the story. All right, he's actually doing a ritual at the very end of this, and you're gonna be involved. Like I definitely felt like she shoehorned Voldemort in. I know that was a big deal because he came back to life at that moment.
Yeah.
But it really felt like it randomly kind of happened. Like Harry just stumbled into a ritual and he's just now in it, kind of. And I guess like there could have been a better way you could have done that. I also kind of semi wish that they just didn't do Voldemort at all and just focus on the tournament arc. It's like it's just a fucking cool tournament arc. That's it. You know, just fight each other, fight the challenges, show how everyone do it. Fight the challenges and stuff like that. So I kind of wish that they put more emphasis on the tournament arc and how big of a deal it was.
Yeah.
But that's like the only gripes I had. It was just the tournament arc. I think the Voldemort stuff was obviously pretty important. I liked the arc in that movie. To give it some praise, I do like how Harry was hated temporarily, and I like that Harry got told that all of his friends thought he was a piece of shit at one point, and I can respect Harry for forgiving all his friends for thinking that, because if that was me, I would never forgive any of my friends. I mean, if you were told that all of us thought you were a piece of shit at one point in life, I don't know if you would ever want to be friends again.
Valid.
But props to Harry. He's like, oh, I'll forgive you guys for thinking I was a piece of shit.
So do you see kind of why it's found its place on my yearly watch list, the whole series?
Yeah, it's the midway point, right? As much as I didn't like the tournament arc, it's still a tournament arc. It was still fucking cool. I did like the challenges themselves. I may have had problems with the fact that we just didn't get to see everybody.
Yeah.
But the challenges themselves were cool. Like that dragon challenge, I like the rules that for the dragon challenge. It was basically use whatever means you have to win. Even that means you're cheating and bringing a broom out of nowhere so you can fly. But it's part of the rules. You're doing whatever it takes to win.
Yep.
And I like that. I like that they didn't just restrict them to be like, you can only beat this dragon with a certain thing, a certain spell or whatever. The challenge is beat this dragon any way you can. That maze looked like a horror fucking challenge.
Yep. More
than anything else. Like, good luck keeping your sanity trying to find that.
Yep.
And then the underwater stuff was pretty crazy too. It's like, imagine being kidnapped for the challenge. Like, all right, that's your role, Jordan. You're the best friend of the person participating in your game.
You might not make it out alive.
You might not make it alive. They don't save you. Turns out they weren't that good of a friend.
Yeah.
That's how you find out. So those challenges were pretty hardcore. I wish there was also more impact that movie had with the tournament too. I wish the tournament actually meant something later on down the road. Like, oh, I won the tournament.
Right.
That's like, maybe Harry should have got like a super cool boon or something that helps him later in the story,
Yeah.
Because the tournament definitely felt like, oh, it was a cool thing he just did, wasn't it? And back to regular life.
Yeah, right.
I wish that he would have got something cool for his trouble that he can use later on to fight Voldemort or something.
Experience.
The experience did help. Yeah, he did. He saw people dying and shit.
Yep.
But so he does pick up the experience. I just wish that he picked up something cooler too, like Like that one potion was pretty cool. Potion where you succeed at everything.
In Half Blood Prince.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Felix Felicia potion that gives you enormous luck.
Yeah, I was hoping he would get something cool for winning that tournament, just so that it could show us later like, oh yeah, he won that tournament for a reason, and now here it is. But overall, though, I do like the challenges. I like the dragon stuff. I liked how cool it was. I just wish we got to see other people, and I just wish we had some dueling in there.
Yeah.
Just to really show how cool it is. It was a good opportunity to show off like other schools and how they deal with their challenges, but I guess the focus was going to be Hogwarts. They didn't want to make other schools too cool.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Harry Potter for you. Overall, it was really good. I enjoyed it. If you watch it again next year, I would be down to watch it again.
Awesome.
Do you really just watch it every single year?
I try to.
Okay.
Yep. Maybe with me watching it this year in October, I'll push it back to December next year.
Okay.
But yeah.
I was thinking, like, should I also contribute something to the thing as well? Just like a show?
Yeah, you should.
Or just movie?
Yeah.
I don't have much experience in horror. The only anime that I would probably throw up there to watch is anime called Summertime Rendering. Have you ever seen that?
Mm.
Oh, okay. You're like, I think I would throw that up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a show about time traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like shit's happening, and the main character the main character's time traveling to try to prevent bad things from happening.
Okay.
So you're wondering, like, oh, okay, very interesting. The reason why I like this show is because most of the time when you think of a time traveling show, you're thinking sci-fi. You know, like, oh, he's using a machine or some sci-fi technology to do it.
Mm.
It's always like time traveling stuff is always integrated with sci-fi,
Yeah.
naturally. But this one is actually one of the few shows that's not. There is no sci-fi in this show. The time traveling is all supernatural. It's a supernatural style of doing it, which I thought was very cool. It's the first time traveling show I've ever seen where it wasn't sci-fi related. It was all supernatural, and that's why I would recommend that show. It is 25-ish episodes or so,
Okay.
which is about like a 6 to
That's
8
a
hour
season.
runtime.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that one because there's a sense of thriller from the time traveling thing. Obviously, I'm not mentioning much of what the threat is because obviously I probably leave that as a surprise.
Yeah.
But it's just like a guy trying to save his friends from bad stuff happening to them, and it's not sci-fi. I think the fact that it's a supernatural phenomenon for the time traveling gives it that spooky horror feel. Because there's definitely a lot of tense moments when you see your friends die and you're like, oh shit, now I gotta save them, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the show. If I could throw one thing in there for the Halloween, that's what I would throw.
Yeah, we should throw it on the list.
Yeah, I would be happy to add that in. And the fact that you have never even seen or heard of it,
Yeah.
the reason why you've never heard of it is because it was made by Disney.
Oh.
And Disney did a terrible job marketing it.
As they always do.
As they always do. Many people don't know this show exists because Disney doesn't promote it at all. You had to literally find it.
Okay.
You had to find that it was actually a show that aired. It's one of the more underrated shows by a lot of people say that. And I say it too. I think it's super underrated just because of the fact that you don't know, you've never even heard of it. It's a good show. So, we've had quite a long night of talking, Jordan. I can't believe it's already 4 a.m. It's crazy.
Holy moly. What a night.
You know, maybe we shouldn't have done this on a weeknight like this, huh?
Oh,
But
it is what it is.
I imagine talking a weeknight is till like 4 in the morning is ideal because I want our viewers to capture the tone of what we are, of who we are, and we are definitely talk till 3 in the morning kind of guys.
Oh yeah.
And I think doing it, like even the fact that like we might be tired when we talk about things and exhausted, I think that adds to the podcast.
Yeah.
It shows how tired we really are. We're not sitting here energetic in the morning talking about this stuff. So I enjoy that we talk about it late at night. We recorded our first episode now. We're at the end. How are you feeling about doing your first? Is this your first ever podcast you've ever done?
No.
No.
But it's the first one that I'm truly dedicating myself to.
Wow.
Yep.
You've done a podcast before?
Yep.
Which?
With Joseph
Wow.
Kleckner. We were gonna make a podcast back in the day about essentially this. Very similar.
This is actually new for me. I've never done a podcast before. Like, the game shows I do and stuff, it is a podcast. Sure, you can say it's a podcast, but not like a podcast where we actually just sit down and just talk. There will always when we did Intimacy is Hot, me and Kevin, we always had stuff to remind yourself that you're not actually doing a podcast per se.
Right.
You know, we got goofy games and really spicy wings. So it always keeps you remembering that like this isn't a real podcast. You're just doing a game show. But this is the first time we've done a real podcast. I know that it sounds so easy on paper, like, oh, we're just sitting here talking to a mic for an hour. But it's
Or
actually, three. But I didn't think it would be that hard to do, but I mean, and I am coming out of it not thinking that's a hard thing to do.
No.
But it definitely is something that was interesting, right? I am happy that we did this upstairs on the couch because I feel like
this is where our conversations normally happen.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to go downstairs and do it, because I didn't want us to change our comfortable setting.
Our routine.
We didn't want to change our routine for it. And honestly, I might just keep doing this setup in the future.
All right.
Like there's no work from you, right? You don't need to do anything. I just bring the PC up here, put the mic right here, and we just do what we always do. You know?
Yeah.
Just talk about it, and I kind of like this format. Honestly, if I had the money for it, I would get a couch just to put it in my room.
Yeah.
Just so we can sit on the couch down there. But this is a good alternative way to get it done while we're low on resources. Apollo's the only thing I have to worry about, but it looks like we found out a solution.
Yeah. Lock them away under the broom cupboard.
Midway through the show. Well, hope y'all enjoyed the Apollo cameos that we had there. Anything you're excited for in the next 2 weeks before we come back to this podcast, off the top of your head?
Oh, I'm interested to show you some more movies on the watch list.
Oh, okay.
And playing some Sparking Zero.
That's right. We never talked about Sparking Zero, but it just came out this weekend. We might not have too much thoughts on it.
Still got a lot of the game to explore.
I would love to get our thoughts on it the next time we come back and talk. Talking about how fun or terrible, whatever it is. So we'll say that for next time. But until then, this has been our two janitors and our to be named show podcast that we still have to figure that out. Thank you all for listening this late at night. And it's been The Fisherman and Blueberries coming at you at 4 a.m. Thanks for tuning in to listen, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.